Okay. But when it comes to extinction, I have to keep my eye on it. I like to know what's coming. I feel like disconnecting from that for me is unhealthy. I want to see this train coming down the track. I want to look it in the eye. I wanted the people to come here, feel comfortable, talk about what was on their minds, as if you're sitting around at the kitchen table with each other, just being a shoulder to be with, just being someone that is a friend. Because everyone's in a different stage. We all come to the science. We go flat out, learn everything we can, and then we go, oh my God, that's going to make my life different. How am I going to deal with that difference? And that's probably where healthy responses comes in, whether it's get away from your screens, whether it's get outside into the natural world, whether it's eat really healthy, continue to be involved in your own physical health. All those things play a part in resilience. And resilience emotionally is as important as any sort of resilience. And so I think that the word solastalgia, for example, absolutely typifies the feeling of, I've got all these people around me, but I can't talk about this one thing because that doesn't work. You can't talk about it to just anybody. And that's why I encourage people to meet up, because, to be honest, the relief you feel when you can just talk. I'm not interested in convincing anybody of anything.
When you figured out, yes, this really is it. We're at the end of our time. I had such I went into a depression. I couldn't do anything. I was just
a lot of people
completely stopped in my tracks. And I'd been an activist like so many.
Me too.
Yeah, and all the voices in my head went silent, right? Because their job had been to make the future better, and that future didn't exist anymore. And so suddenly they didn't have a job.
Redream. Time to redream.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just curious, did that happen to you, or did you find that you had a different reaction to understanding the information?
I think there is a point where you intellectually understand it, and then there is a second phase which is harder, where you emotionally are kicked in the stomach. The second phase hurts the most by a long, long way. 4 years ago, I went back to Western Australia. Well, I went back to Australia, went and saw my daughters in Melbourne, stayed for a couple of weeks, went back to my home in Western Australia. And I had gone out to the back beach, was walking along, it's like a big jutting out rock spit. And so you walk along the rock spit to get to the very end. And I know for a fact that a pod of juvenile dolphins hang out there. So I had my camera in my backpack and I was strapped up, and it was blowing, close, really windy. I was spewing that I didn't have a lacquey for my hair, and it was all over in my face, and it was really annoying. So I was crawling along the rocks there, enormous, great, pointy rocks. You're not really supposed to walk along them, but I've done it millions of times. So I was crawling along the rocks to get to the end. And at one point I looked at my hand, and that's when it hit me. All these dark grey rocks, and there was no bird poop on them. And you have no idea, I just sat staring at my hand, and my eye just spread out, and I looked around me, and that was the moment. I literally just sat there and went, where the fuck are the cormorants? Where the fuck are the birds that live here? Because I was so excited to be there. That detail had completely skipped my notice until I realised I wasn't having to duck for where to put my hand. I could put it anywhere. Why could I put it anywhere? there's no evidence of birds. I have to tell you, that was a kick in so sat there, bawling my eyes out like you do, probably for an hour. Pulled myself together, looked up, and there's this great big rainbow. I mean, in between it had rained. It didn't matter. I was crying up there. This was my home. This really hurt. And the piles of seaweed that are normally on the beach weren't there. There was lots of details. As soon as I realised that, suddenly it was like almost like a little time change, and suddenly everything was so visible. Being not there for 4 years made it more powerful, I think. But it was so familiar. 30 years of my life had been spent often on that beach every day for forever. And then this rainbow came out, and I thought, okay, go get some chips, go home, go back to mum's, you know. But that for me was the emotional acceptance phase. It's a different thing to an intellectual understanding. And I think that that is something that happens to people after they join support groups, because they come there hot and heavy with the details, hot and heavy with the research. Oh my God, I need someone to talk to, but they've only hit the intellectual acceptance, or they're still even slightly wavering, but they have a big feeling that, you know, we ain't going to fix this. If we have to rely on governments and plans and systems, this isn't fixable, which we know it isn't. Emotionally accepting it is a completely different thing, and that's the point where I think we as humans connected in small groups, wherever, physically, digitally, it doesn't matter, because our brain treats it as if that person's sitting next to you. Our brain neurologically treats the conversations as if we are friends sitting around a table. So I treat the text, the conversation that way. Well, that's why I created a local area map of the world, so people can see who's the closest to them, and then they can manage their own connections. I know lots of people have met up through those sorts of situations. I mean, even if it's just a starting point and they all bring a friend, or they just go and have coffee or an ice cream somewhere, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It just doesn't matter. So it enriches my life. You know, we share, we don't just talk about doom, of course. We talk about books, we talk about music, we talk about movies we've seen. We talk about our family, our kids, our gardens. It's community, you know. It's what we're so hungry for in our worlds where that's missing. Because the sadness is there, it's behind everything. There is a sadness, a loss. And to pretend we're not grieving is a joke. We're all hurting inside. I mean, the planet that sustains us isn't doing too good. There really is no nice way to say that. No. You know, my husband was a very stressed out person, and I just read so much about people that garden and get dirty in the dirt. And I was always in the dirt, you know. He was always giving me a hard time about dirty hands, dirty feet, whatever. City boy, you know. But I read so much about dirt being really good for stress. I encouraged him to do his own garden. And originally he was like, but I could at least grow potatoes. And no. He got into it. His stress levels dropped. He got into it. His stress levels dropped. It was huge.
Wow.
He didn't know why. And so for anyone dealing with any level of anxiety or stress in life and living in those two worlds of extinction awareness and business as usual, the natural world is probably the first thing I would encourage people to connect to. And then their passion, whether it's art or writing or sewing or weaving or painting or making their own clothes, creating something. Some wonderful musicians and writers in the group.
Yes.
And it's interesting how many creatives put the dots together way faster than the science. It's not so much a neurology. It's the ability to take in disparate information from multiple sources. But I think what happens is that creative people check it out. Is there really more storms? I am going outside and seeing more storms. I am seeing physical damage of things. I notice that. And so, but predominantly, I mean, every doomer group I know of has a high percentage of lateral creative thinkers.
Wow, that's so interesting. I hadn't realized that. I know that there's a high percentage of activists, and particularly environmental activists, as one could imagine.
Yeah, and it's actually, I think I did a poll once, and it was beyond statistically relevant, like 60% of all the members were creative in some way, whether they wrote books, whether they were journalists, whether they were photographers. Wow. It doesn't matter. Songwriters, people that. So that really, or they were in a field such as social work or the social sciences in general. And so it's not an exclusive all rule thing, but there's a way higher percentage. And so I have a bit of a theory that it's easier for those people to connect the links. So everything should be a bit of play. So get outside, do what's your passion, play matters every day. I mean, cats are a great Zen master, in my opinion. They teach me so much.
It's true.